I got to show you guys something. I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but I got to show you guys this. All right, YouTube. So listen up. This is going to be a real short video. I don't have really a whole lot to talk about for this particular topic. Now, a lot of people, they come to me and say, I've heard this about female dragons. I've heard this about male dragons. Let me just cut to the chase. The only differences between female dragons and male dragons, it's not the size. It's not really the temperament all the time. It really just depends on the dragon itself. And it has nothing to do with the care, upkeep, or anything like that. The only differences between male and female dragons is males after they get to breeding age, sometimes, not every time, I have males that don't care about breeding. I have males that are too aggressive about breeding. It really just depends on the particular dragon. I have females that are aggressive about breeding, and they're mounting males. So it doesn't really matter as far as the gender goes, but males, some of them, will get really temperamental during breeding season. They also display a lot of dominant characteristics as pets. So you'll see them walk around bobbing their head, blackbearding. They'll bob at you. They'll bob at anything that moves because they're trying to make sure that everybody knows they're king and they're the most dominant thing in the room. That's the only real difference on the male side. On the female side is that sometimes it really just depends on the diet, how much calcium they take, everything like fat, protein, anything that they intake. If they have too much of it, they may lay infertile clutches. How do you stop either of those things from happening and just have a well-rounded bearded dragon? You can't really stop hormones. So there's that. There's no trick to stop male dragons from being temperamental and hormonal during breeding season. There's nothing you can do about that. And honestly, in captivity, males' breeding season can be throughout their entire lives. They probably don't have a break in breeding season. But that's just how it is for males. Females, how do you prevent it? Now, some people say there's no way of preventing it. Yes, there is. And I'll explain it this way. Females carry fat in their eggs. They use calcium for their eggs. They use protein for their eggs. They use all of this stuff for their eggs. If they get too much of these things, they're going to put it into eggs. They're going to lay infertile clutches to get rid of this stuff. What if you have a female that didn't get too much of that and still laid an infertile clutch? Sometimes you can't stop it. Sometimes you can't. But because there's calcium, there's fat, and there's protein in those eggs, you can feed them back to the females. And I actually have a clip that I want to show you guys of me feeding a female her eggs. Now, by the time I recorded this video, she had already eaten 3 or 4 of them. There was 10 eggs total. There was 3 eggs left after I fed most of them off. So she ate 7 eggs. But by the time I started recording her so I could show everybody, she decided that's all the eggs I want to eat. And that was it. Now, she had laid 10 eggs. If she was carrying fertile eggs, she would have laid a lot more, in my opinion. This female is one of the females that I talked about whenever I was talking about overweight bearded dragons. She bred, she had 1 clutch of fertile eggs. And then she had a 2nd clutch of infertile eggs. That was about 10 eggs. Had a 3rd clutch. It was infertile eggs. Also about 10 of them. And she's always been fed her eggs back because I don't see the point in wasting. Obviously, it's one thing if you incubate the eggs, trying to see if they're fertile, which you shouldn't do that. You can see if they're infertile really quick. But if you have some that look fertile and you incubate them, you can't really go back and feed them off because by the time that you see that they're going bad, they're probably going to gain mold and all of that. So you can't really feed them back. But if they just came right out of her, and you can put them right back in her. No harm done there. So this is the thing that I want to talk about is I have the other dragon. She's 502 grams now. I don't remember exactly where she was when I first got her and her weight and everything, but I'll put that up on the screen and also put a picture up of where she was a few months ago. And she's already down to 502 grams, which is a whole lot better than where she was. This is not the female that has laid eggs. The female that has laid eggs, because she has laid eggs, she's about 330 grams. So she's lost about 100 grams. But this is the weight after she laid the eggs. So she could have been probably like 350 by the time she laid her eggs, probably 360 or so. So let's say she's lost about 100 grams. And that's typical because every time they lay eggs, they usually lose about 40 grams because not only do they stop eating, but the eggs weigh also because, again, calcium, fat, protein, they also have a weight. So she has lost weight through that entire process because every single time she lays eggs, the first time was a fertile clutch, so she actually lost about 60 grams there. But the second and third time, it was about 30 grams because the eggs were not fertile and there was only 10 of them. So during their entire process of, laying eggs, she's lost technically a total of 120 grams based off laying eggs. But because she gains some weight back after she lays eggs during the eating process throughout the entire month, then she gets back, let's say 30 grams, then she loses 30 grams. So she's kind of staying even now. It's about 330, 350 grams, which is where I like to keep my females. Now, she looks exactly the same as she did when she was 450 grams. I think she was 450 grams. She looks exactly the same. But how can that be if she's lost 100 grams? She should look anorexic. She should look underweight. That's not the case. All of the weight was in her legs, her throats, her her tail. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember this video, but the two dragons had throats that were like hanging down to the floor. Not so much her, but the other one was like down here. She looked like she had a quadruple chin. And I hate to say that about her, but that's just how it is. And if you guys watch that video, I went ham on these dragons because I want people to know this is not acceptable. This is not something that you should be doing with your bearded dragons. I do not allow my dragons to go over 400 grams. That's not something that I do ever. Anything over 400 grams better be almost 2 feet long. And at that point, the 400 grams is mainly going to be bone structure and muscle because they're so long. Most bearded dragons are 18 to 20 inches. So if you have an 18 to 20 inch dragon that's over 400 grams versus one that's 24 inches, so it's 4 inches more, which is about, in terms of everything, you probably have like 16% more body weight because of the length. Yeah, if it's over 400 grams, that's equivalent to another dragon being like 360, 370. So that's about where they should be for the 18 to 20 inches. That's just where I'm saying, that's where I'm gauging it. So I just tried to do that math in the head. I don't know if it's accurate as far as 16% body weight and all that, but I'm assuming 4 inches more in size, 24 into 20, 4 inches. That's literally, I want to say like 1/6 or something like that. Yeah, something like that. 1/6. Yeah. I don't know exactly how much it is. 1/8, 1/6. I don't know. Geez, I don't really know. Something like that. But that's just where I'm trying to get to. The body weight difference is really important because of the size difference. So me saying I don't let them go over 400 grams, it's just talking about normal dragons that are 18 to 20 inches. It's not, I had one that was 23 inches before and he was about, I want to say he was about 460 grams, but that's because he was a big muscular dude. Like he had no fat in his throat. He had no, like the tail was perfectly sized. His legs were perfectly sized. He just was really, I mean, he also had a massive head. I'm not gonna lie, but he did have a massive head. So that's probably where a lot of the weight went to as well. And that's really all I got for this video. That's really all I wanted to talk about was explaining the differences between male and females and how to prevent those differences, and also how to talk about weight a little bit because, weight is also important when we're talking about female dragons. It's not as important with male dragons, but it's very important with female dragons because that's usually the cause of them laying infertile clutches. But with all that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything that I put out in the future. As always, peace.